This episode of the Power of War podcast is brought to you by SaferNet. For a full VPN experience coupled with antivirus, web filters, internet controls, and an internet use tracking console, SaferNet provides complete protection for your organization. Check them out online at safernet.com. You've tuned into the Power of War podcast with Brad Hawkins, serial entrepreneur and author of 3 books, God, the Devil, and the Internet, Unshakable Life, and The Power of War. I'm your host, Jim Brangenberg, also a serial entrepreneur and author of 3 books. I work for him, I retire for him, and she works for him. You know, our goal with every Power of War podcast is to provide a lively, unfiltered, unedited, unfettered, and unscripted conversation with a business person. We want to explore their daily work and see if we can uncover a powerful war moment facing our guest. Our goal is to access the wisdom of God for the solutions that man seeks. This podcast, sponsored by SaferNet.com. Today, let me introduce Russell Jenson from Denver, Colorado. Russell, thanks for being on the Power of War podcast with Brad and I today.
Just a real honor just to sit in your presence and just kind of listen in. I'm excited to hear what the next hour will bring.
It's not about you listening in, though. You're actually going to have to talk. So we'll have to figure that part out.
Oh, that's awesome.
I can do that.
Although you said he was from Colorado.
Isn't he from Colorado? I thought he's from Colorado.
He is from Colorado, but now he's like scattering the world. I mean, every time I try to find out where he's at, he's in another part of the country. But
I love the fact that he spent most of his summer in my beloved home state of Minnesota. Even though, and what I really love, if you were really going to make an impact, Russell, if you would just move to Minnesota and run for governor. Yeah. Because maybe you could help bring about a Jesus revolution in the great state of Minnesota, which has been hijacked by the enemy in so many ways. What a great state, and what a state. Well, do you live in Colorado? It's the same thing. Why is it, gentlemen, that as believers, we've let the unbelievers take over our states, our government, our judicial system, and we sit by the side and do absolutely nothing about it?
That's a very good question. What are you going to do?
I'm contemplating. Well, first of all, I'm in a small little town in Southwest Missouri, and I'm actually working on a platform for electing local aldermen and a new mayor to help turn our city around, because we have our alderman meetings are like an episode of The View. 5 angry women and 1 man who's afraid to say anything. So my wife hasn't given me permission to run for mayor yet, but I think it's probably better that I could just have more influence as a business guy, walking alongside and praying for the mayor and the board of aldermen. So that's what I'm doing. What are you doing? Awesome. What are you doing, Brad Hawkins?
Well, one of the things we're doing is we're getting to talk to Russ today. So
okay, there we go.
And that is something I've been looking forward to for quite some time. He's a new old friend, if I can say it that way. He's in the course of my life, he's fairly new, but it's like we are so close that it's hard to say that we're new friends. But I just love listening to what Russ is up to. But let's go back a little bit. I'd like to learn a little bit about your career. What have you done in developing your career? Where did you start? Where did you go? What happened? Now, I know we're going to talk a little bit about the ending of your selling off your business, but let's go back.
Yeah. I would probably go back in the relative beginnings, which is when my wife and I got married. We moved to Arizona, and we were both teachers. We moved to Lake Havasu City to start our life together, and I was teacher for almost 20 years, and then I got into administration, moved here to Denver.
What did you teach?
I taught elementary school.
Oh, wow. So it means you taught everything.
Yes. Yeah. My wife is a speech pathologist, and she worked with kids from preschool all the way up into high school. So she's kind of covered the whole gamut of kids and speech and language and things like that. And she just retired last May, so she's really happy at the moment that she's not having to deal with that. But yeah, we taught out there for a while, and then we adopted our son Joey when he is from Korea, and we adopted him when he was 8 months old, and we decided that Arizona is probably not the place, at least in Lake Havasu, to raise a young child. It's incredibly hot and just not a lot to do. So we found ourselves back here in Colorado. Found a teaching job here in Colorado down in Douglas County. Then got into, I was assistant principal for several years. And during that time, I would teach during the day. And then I taught the Dale Carnegie course, How to Win Friends and Influence People, in the evenings. And I did that for 21 years and just absolutely loved that program. And when I decided to get out of teaching about 10, 11, 12 years ago, I said, you know what? Just the politics of education just kind of got in my way. And it just wasn't any fun anymore. I felt like the teachers were really handcuffed as far as their creativity and the things that they can bring to the classroom. And it was so structured and it just kind of lost the flavor that I love so much. So I decided just to part ways and start something different. And that's when I started the current business that I have right now, or actually that I just sold. But that's kind of been the journey. It's a lot of education, leadership training through Dale Carnegie, and just absolutely love being in front of people.
So a teacher to an administrator to an expert in how to win friends and influence people.
A sales guy.
A sales guy?
I mean, that was Dale Carnegie teaches salespeople to be the best salespeople in the world.
They do have that course.
And then to this business,
right.
and then to this business that you, I mean, are you not want to say what the business, can we describe the business? Would that be okay?
Oh, sure. No, I want to talk about it.
Escape rooms.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So how fun was it as a former teacher and administrator, was it to trap children in a room that they had to figure out how to break out of because you had all those years of pent up tension from working with kids and their parents? Actually, I think it would have been more fun to put their parents in those rooms.
Yes.
Because as a teacher, just 1 year, that was it was the most traumatic time of my life. Parents were horrible to deal with. And I worked in a private Christian school. Anyway, so maybe that's why you did the escape rooms. Why did you decide to do the escape room?
Yeah, when I got out of education, I was just kind of looking to find my way, and escape rooms are kind of coming relatively popular around the country and building up. And I ran into a friend of mine that said, you know what, I know that you just got out of education. I know you know some leadership stuff. Would you want to partner with me on building the first escape room here in Denver? And it was a brick and mortar place up here in North Glen, just north of Denver. And I said, yeah, let's just see what happens. And so for people that may listen to this podcast that aren't familiar with escape rooms, essentially what it is, we build some interesting rooms, and then you take a group of people, either friends and family or whatever, and you lock these people into the rooms, and through a variety of locks and clues and puzzles, in about an hour's time, you need to try to navigate your way out of that. And in doing that, it takes some communication, some leadership, some engagement, and really a team working together for a common goal during a time-phased operation, if you will. And just a variety of different rooms. And that's what we opened up here in Denver. And we started with 4 unique rooms that we built in Denver.
What were the themes of those? Do you remember?
Oh, man, yeah. One was an old man's apartment. One was a hospital room. One was a kind of a prison-looking room. And the other one was a sports memorabilia type of room where we brought in a bunch of different sporting things and like that. So we try to cater to everybody's interests. But real quickly, what happened was the general public would come in, and we got super duper busy. And people started coming in and going through the escape room, and we could monitor them from an office in the back on the big screen TVs. If they ran into a trouble or something like that, we could send them a clue. But as I was watching friends and family come into the escape room, I was fascinated by the things that were happening in there. Leadership and engagement and time phase management, and how people's personalities played into the success or not success of getting out of these escape rooms. And I'm like, wow, this is what businesses struggle with every single day. So I called on a couple of companies that I was working with Dale Carnegie, and I said, would you be willing to bring your team in here, go through the escape room, and let me just watch your group work together? And they're like, heck yeah, that sounds great. So I started bringing in small teams. I built a small conference room, and pretty soon I got really busy. And what would happen is they would go in there, I would take a bunch of notes and write some notes down, and I watched what individuals brought to a team, how the team worked together, what were some of the blind spots, how did this whole personality thing come into this thing? And then it just got really busy. And I said, you know what, this is great. And now we start doing team building at this escape room facility. And then what happened was everybody's like, this is so great. We love this. Is there any way you can bring this to us? Because it costs us the whole day. I've got to take my team out of the office. We've got to go to lunch. We do the escape room. We do the debrief with you after the escape room. We get them back to the office and the day is pretty much shot. And I said, you know what? Let me think about that. So I decided I'm going to make it mobile. So I sold my part of the Denver escape room and I built Bust Out Colorado and I made it mobile. A 53-foot semi-trailer that I could now bring to organizations so I didn't have to interrupt their entire day. And I built a 1960s prison in this Bust Out Colorado trailer in a 53-footer, and I could bring it right to them. And boy, they sure love that because it's like I say, it doesn't interfere. I only need them for about 90 minutes. And then the next team can go and the next team can go. We can use their conference room. So that's just kind of how it was born and did it for the last 10 years.
Did you learn how to drive the 18-wheeler yourself?
No, I did not. I hired that out and it's so stressful moving that thing around into these big parking lots in downtown and lots of sleepless nights before those events because it's just a lot to get that thing to where it needs to be and get it all set up with generators and electricity and heating and cooling. It's something that's the part of it I will not miss.
Wow, that is absolutely amazing. I love the idea. I mean, just having that idea of understanding what people are doing, seeing how people really kind of break out into leadership and start leading the group to get them out. Yeah. I find it fascinating. I've never been in an escape room. I've never done one. Probably partially because I'm afraid I'll never get out. I don't know. But it doesn't seem logical to allow someone to lock me into a 60s style prison. But but yeah, I love the concept though. I mean, it's just such I can see where that could just revolutionize a leader to get to the place where he can really, or that person can really stand out. That's really interesting. What would you say is the most curious thing that popped out to you as you went through this process? What did you start seeing in people that was something that you never expected to see?
You know, the beauty of using the escape room as a leadership and a training tool is it's a level playing field. It doesn't matter how many years of experience you have, the money you make, the educational background, your role in the organization. You are now equal when you step into the escape room. So one of the fascinating things for me was to really find out true leadership. Who's going to step up and take charge in this environment? And normally it would be somebody that you wouldn't expect to come in. And I can give you a quick example. I did an event for a company called Oscar Blues, and they make beer up in Longmont here. Dale's Pale Ale and whatever, and brought their leadership team in along with a couple of other people. And they got in there. I'm taking notes. They're going through, and there was a lady named Lisa. And Lisa was just kind of a take charge kind of person. She stopped everything. She goes, "You guys, we got to stop. We don't know where we're going. Where have we been? What have we found? How much time do we have left?" And she just took charge of that room. And when they finished the escape experience, we went into the conference room. And I said, "Lisa, I don't know you well enough, but I have to imagine that you have quite the leadership role here at Oscar Blues." And she said, "Actually, no, I'm the night custodian." And I'm like, "Not for long, not for long." So I say that to say is we found an environment where Lisa could thrive. And she had a voice, she had a chance to lead, and she was heard. And I'm like, those three things for me have been the biggest takeaways of what we find in the escape experience as far as leadership development. That if every person that works at an organization could say, "You know what, I have a voice here, I have a chance to lead, and I'm heard." If those three things are consistent throughout an organization, I just have to think that they're on the way to success. And we just proved that in the escape room.
Wow. That is very cool.
So you have this great idea that's truly transformational on a corporate level. I imagine it's making decent money. Yeah. You sold it.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, I did it for 10 years. My wife, I'm 66 years old. And I said, "You know what? I love the work. I mean, I absolutely love the work. but I didn't love the business part of it anymore. The moving it here and moving it there, and the insurance and just the stuff that goes along with owning a small business. You both know that, and so I put it up for sale. I found the perfect buyer down in Colorado Springs, where she is not going to have to change the Bust Out Colorado theme, the logo, the name, everything transferred over to her. She's now the new owner, and she will continue to use me as a kind of a liaison or a kind of a coach to be able to come in and continue to teach her how this whole thing works, because you just can't hand it off and say good luck. She needs somebody that's been in the trenches for a while, but she has the business part of it now, and I just come in as a contractor and help her out. She continues to grow this, and she wants to franchise it into several different states and things like that. So I will continue to be an advisor to her, but I just don't have to own it.
Was there a defining moment for you as you went through this journey, whether it's, starting the company or whether it's selling it, where you knew that God told you to do it?
I'd love to say that, and I wouldn't be truthful if I said that God really steered me in this direction. For me, selfishly, it was just more of a personal business decision. But I can also say that being a part of the Band of Brothers group that we have, and just the people that I'm surrounding myself with now, are more godly men. I feel like my leadership skills are certainly moving more towards what the Lord wants me to do. So in selling that, I feel like my faith journey is going to be so much stronger now than it was in running a business, because you just can't really drop the faith piece on trainings that I did, unless you know who you're working with, or you ask permission. And we've done churches, leadership groups, and things like that. And I love being able to bring the faith piece into the escape room, because there's so many things you can do. I mean, you talk about being in prison, you talk about the shackles, because mine was a 1960s prison. So now there's so many connections about being shackled, and the bars in front of you, and the future that you have, and how God can support you. So those conversations were great, but you're limited when you can do, as you know, in business, to be able to have those conversations, if that makes sense.
I might disagree with you. I mean, I don't know that you're limited, but maybe you. That's one of those ones where we feel limited. And I think everybody listening is going to agree. We feel like we're limited because we feel like if we bring up Jesus, we bring up biblical principles, that we'll offend somebody. Yet it's the most powerful truth that we can expose anybody to. But that's part of why the organization that I run, I Work for Him, exists, is because so many people feel like they can't do this. Like there's just not a space for it. And yet that space was designed perfectly for the truth that God brings. So Russell, as you've contemplated all this, you've had this great business, you've seen the model, you got some of the greatest training ever, the Dale Carnegie stuff. And if I remember correctly, Dale Carnegie was a believer, if I remember at the beginning of all of that. Yes. So you've got these leadership skills, you've now been able to, you got these evaluatory skills where you can watch people in action, putting them in prison for an hour. What do you think God's preparing for you next? Because I don't know about you, just because you said you're 66, that it's retirement age and you get to go play tennis or golf every day. What a waste of incredible skills. What do you think God's got for you next? Maybe it's you and your bride doing something.
Yeah. I don't want to stop doing leadership training. I absolutely love it. And I know that I'm going to be working with Brad's group, probably in short order here as well. One of the things I think God has me doing is 365 Christian Men. For those that aren't familiar with that ministry, I'm on the board of directors, as is Brad, and that ministry has taken a lot of my time, and I just absolutely love it. I don't make a nickel doing it, but I'm using my time, my treasures, and my talent to be able to move that forward, helping Blake Maddox, the executive director of 365 Christian Men, so spending a ton of time with new stories. And my goal is this. When the funding comes in, when God provides funding for 365 Christian Men, my goal is to get a motorhome with my wife and start traveling the country, doing and recording more stories for 365 Christian Men. That is the short order vision that my wife and I have decided that we will do. See the country, collect more stories for God's ministry.
And is it going to be wrapped? 365 Christian Stories. Is that .com?
That's the plan, and to put a studio in there, and of course it's going to cost some money to get that done. But that is really the plan that it's our vision. So far, it isn't God's vision, and He'll direct us in whatever way He wants to take this wonderful ministry of 365 Christian Men. But that's really my goal and my focus right now is to do those things. And I'll continue, and I get asked to do speaking things and leadership training, and I'll continue to help Samantha with Bust Out Colorado. But now I get to do these things on my time.
So the big question that I would ask is the why. My favorite thing is taking something beyond an idea to a why is that idea. And oftentimes God is the one that is putting the why in. And so to take that, take that a little bit further to be able to say, okay, God says, He's the light to our feet, not necessarily the spotlight down the path. Right. So, and I've done this so many times in starting different businesses. I get this great idea of what it is that I want to do, and it makes so much sense. And I realize I just created a spotlight down the path, way down there, and I have no idea how to get from A to Z. And yet, when He says that He's the light to our feet, He's going to tell us step by step how to get to that point. And so when you look at that aspect of things, and I love the concept of going around and telling the stories. Number one, why tell the stories? And I think you and I have a good idea of what that might look like. But the next question is what is the next step? So talk to us a little about that.
The next step for why I want to go out and do this?
What is the next step of whatever the why is? Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the whys for me is God has gifted me with the ability to have good conversations with people, to be able to dig a little bit deeper in their lives, based on the leadership training and things I've done in the past. But the why is every man and every woman has a story to tell, and it needs to be told. And I think if we provide a vessel for them to be able to tell those stories, it's going to really catch on fire, which 365 Christian Men already has. It's a global empire as far as people watching and listening to people's stories. I just have this passion to hear people's stories and to get those stories out so people know they're not alone. If people listen on this podcast to 365 Christian Men, they will find a connection with themselves in every story that they hear every single day. And our goal is to get out there and find as many stories and as many new stories as we can, because everybody has one.
And you're specifically talking about Jesus stories, people whose lives have been transformed by a relationship with the loving Heavenly Father and His Son, Jesus. And I think I've listened to many of those stories. It is an incredible gift every day to be able to start your day listening to the story, the struggle of somebody who overcame in their incredible lives, and they don't always have a happy ending, not from an earthly standpoint.
Sure.
But it's, I agree, it's cool. But so if anybody's listening to the podcast today and you've got a motorhome that maybe you just don't drive anymore because you don't, you're 75 or 80 and you don't feel like driving through Atlanta in a motorhome anymore, and you'd like to donate your motorhome and get a great tax write-off, 365christianmen.com. Get a hold of Blake Maddox. You can donate the motorhome, and they can get this thing wrapped up and get it going on the road next month. 365christianmen.com. They're not paying for any advertising. I just happen to know their website because I'm familiar with the ministry. Back to you, Brad.
I love that. I want to see Russell on his motorhome traveling the world telling stories. And honestly, if you think about it, that's what Jesus did. He traveled the world telling stories. One also very interesting thing that he also never did anything that the Father didn't tell him to do, which is really kind of a fun thing. In the process of walking this path, how will you know that God is saying this is what you want? He wants you to do.
I love that question, Brad, and I honestly do not have an answer. I guess I just asked God to guide me during this time. This is a whole new season for my wife and I with travel, and we just, we have another home up in Minnesota, which Jim loves, and we it's kind of a time right now just for us to be just prayerful and say, what do you have for us next, God? Because we know that you are not done with us. You're just getting started. So guide us, lead us, and being a part of these small groups that we're in, and you're in a couple of them with us, is I don't know. I just leaning into the Word right here, not far away. But what does God have next for us in this season of our life? We're still healthy. We're happy. We have a nickel in the bank, and we're pretty darn flexible at this time. So God will have that answer for us. And if it's not 365 Christian Men, that's not his plan. But we are open.
Basically, what you're saying is you're waiting for your mission from God, which would make you a missionary. But because you've got a 401k, you're getting Social Security, you're basically already a fully funded missionary waiting for your mission assignment from God.
I would say that would be true.
There you go.
And the beautiful thing is that I know that God is speaking to all of his believers all the time. And a lot of times people will say, well, God's silent. I don't hear him. Well, it's usually because we're off absorbing ourselves into another part of the world and not taking the time to spend it with him and know what he's saying. And then, a lot of times people will say, well, I've never heard his voice. I don't know what he's doing. And we're thinking that it's a voice that is a booming out of body experience. But if we're a believer, the Bible says the Holy Spirit's in us and he's speaking to us from being a believer, from the Holy Spirit inside of us. And so there are so many different ways that he communicates with us. And I think, Russell, you've followed his leading, even if you're not fully aware of that throughout this entire experience, because he will speak to other people and allow them to do things. Being involved in the Dale Carnegie put you in a position to be able to do these breakouts, and I'm sure that in the process of listening to these people around you saying, "Hey, can you bring it to us?" And God puts this idea in your heart to say, "Gosh, I don't even know how to drive a truck, but I can build a truck, and I can get this truck to the place where it's functioning, and then I can go hire someone to go drive this truck for me." And then you're showing up, and I think there's times where getting the truck to where it needed to be, he's out there orchestrating the whole thing, trying to pull it all together and help you in that process. And so now it's just a matter of watching and seeing what he does. And one of my favorite things is when I don't know what's next, I just walk around with my eyes wide open saying, "God, what are you doing? Show me what you're doing." And it opens up doors. And I think that's what you're doing with 365 is as what I understand, you've jumped in to help and you've done everything you can, and you got your eyes wide open saying, "Okay, what's next? I love this ministry. How can I help more?" And that's the way I see, not only God speaking to your heart when sometimes we think it's our great idea, but a lot of times it's probably if we're submitted to him and we're committed to walking with him and in a place where we're not stepping directly into sin and where we know that we're not going to be able to hear what he's saying, when we're walking that path, you can trust a lot of what he's saying. When we're in peace about what it is that's going on, when we're walking in joy, we're believing that, like in Romans it says, we're believing that his righteousness is what gets us to that place. A lot of those, what we would consider good ideas, are his leading us into those paths. Now, if we're outside of that, if we're caught up into some kind of sin, if we're angry, if we're frustrated, don't trust your words. Don't trust what's going through your head, because that's not a good plan. But when you're walking in that peace and that joy and that knowing that his righteousness allows you to be in communion with him, trust what it's saying and walk those paths. And so that's what I see that you have done, is you've walk the path of the Holy Spirit guiding you. And maybe you haven't been fully aware of that, but it still brings glory to God, whether you're aware of that or not, because you're being obedient to that. And that's what's so exciting to me is hearing that journey that you've been on. You've gone from teaching to administration to breakout rooms, and you can go look into the behind the scenes. You were taught how to be a teacher. You were then taught how to be an administrator. Then you started a business and you wrapped all of that together into a business. I can only imagine what's going to happen next. I mean, that seems so exciting to me to see this path of obedience to the Holy Spirit all the way through this to now this place where you might think you're wrapping things up. I have a feeling you're going to blow things up into something much bigger.
Yeah, a couple of things that I even tend to forget about in this retirement stage. And you asked, what is God leading you to do? I sometimes forget. Every Saturday I speak to a church in Pakistan. We pastor to a church in Pakistan through 365 Christian Men, and Blake Maddox and I, we speak to a church and counsel and guide a young pastor to grow his church over there. So, sometimes you forget about that. And then the other thing too is I forget about.
So can we call you Pastor Russell? Is that what you're saying?
No. And the other thing is I started that campground ministry. Brad, you know about that, where I started, now I do services at the Minnesota lake that I'm at on Sunday mornings. And I was hoping that maybe 5 or 6 people might show up for something that I advertised on the local Facebook page. 38 people showed up the very first day, enough to make a guy nervous. So, God is definitely not done with me yet. And he's using my skill set to kind of guide me and help me. And I just absolutely love that ministry. And I kind of forget about it, but it's been so good for me.
Oh, that is awesome.
Russell, you have no idea what God's going to do with you next. I have the feeling you had pictured this relaxing, totally chill retirement years. You are going to run until the end and just burst through the walls in between the dimensions. God has got some incredible things ahead for you. And this campground ministry, I had forgotten that you were doing that. That's just incredible. What lake is that on? In case there's somebody listening, they got a cabin up there on that lake in northern Minnesota. Where's it at? What lake are you on?
It's north of Minneapolis. The lake is called Rush Lake, and if you look up Rush Lake in Minnesota, there's probably about 40 of them.
Yeah, I was going to say 40 or 50. Yeah. Rush Lake in what county? In what city?
Just north of Cambridge, Minnesota.
Okay, so up along I-35 then.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. All right. Well, in case you're looking for it, we can get a hold. If you want to get a hold of Russell Jenson and get involved in that campground ministry next year after the snow melts, you can email me, jim@iworkforhim.com. I'll connect you up. jim@iwork4him.com. Brad, what an incredible conversation. I want to hit into this retirement thing a little bit because, Russell's hitting one of my hot topics. Can I run with that for a minute, or is that okay?
Of course. All
right, because Russell, tell me if I'm wrong. All of your life, you've been told when you hit 65, you're done. It's time to check out, go on a lifelong vacation.
That is what we have seen, yes.
All right. Is there any biblical basis for that? Is there any truth to that?
I think people check out at 65. I've seen it before.
Sure, but that part's true. But is that what God really intended to do with all of those gifts, talents, and abilities he's given you over the last 67 years?
No, I think God has bigger plans for me at this age. Now that I'm not interrupted with the work stuff, now I think I could do more work for him.
So you're getting rid of work for different work. Okay, all right. So, but why do you think it is that people think that they're just supposed to check out at 65? Why is it that so many Christians in America, where all the wealth of wisdom and knowledge is, these 65-plus-year-olds who have so much experience, why do you think it is they think it's okay to just check out and move to Florida or Arizona and be done?
Yeah, you could probably speak to that better than me. But you know what? Growing up in North Dakota, it's all farm. I mean, everybody there, it's all farming, and that's it. And those farmers work hard from a very young age until retirement, and it's stressful and it's difficult, but it's profitable. And I think when they get to 65, they're able to give it away to the rest of their family and continue the farming legacy. But that has just been a way of life, at least from where I grew up. It's when we get to 65, we're done. And you're right, Jim. Let's go to Florida. Let's go to Arizona. It is time to absolutely check out, kick my feet up, take up pickleball and golf and those kind of things. That is just what I had seen growing up. But moving away from that for so many years, that just isn't for me. I want to do more. It's, you know what? Health is a big part of this thing. And I don't think there's any arguing that, because if I were not healthy, then I would just kind of click the time away from 65 until I'm done. So I'm just so blessed with my health, and so is my wife, and just being able to do the things that we want to do.
Well, the large majority of people 65 to 70 are in great health in today's world. I mean, good grief. My parents, Martha's mom is 90, my mom's 91, my dad's 92. They're all doing fine-ish right now. So when you look at this wealth of wisdom, people that want to just check out, yet you've got some friends. You have some friends that are a little older than you that have been retired for a few years already?
Oh, for sure.
And are they happy doing nothing?
No.
Well, how would you describe their demeanor?
I think they had the same idea that you were talking about. I'm just going to check out at 65, kick my feet up, read a bunch of books, and just sit on the beach. And they find that they have a lot left in the tank. They need to be busy. Most of the people that I know that are my age or a little bit older have started some type of a part-time job, because they realize I have to stay on the move. I have to stay aggressive, and I have to stay in shape, and I have to do these things that I didn't think I would do, because I am getting incredibly bored, and it happens quickly.
Yeah, it does. Because if
you know something very funny about that is I used to have an investment company for 20 years, and I helped people prepare for retirement for my career. That way, I mean, that's really what we were doing. And then people would come into my office and they say, "Okay, when can I retire?" And as I progressed into this whole philosophy of understanding what happens to my clients when they get into their retirement mode, they just slow down, they come apart. And so what I ended up doing is, when people say, show me when I can retire, I just flip my calendar around. And those back when we had paper calendars, I'd flip my calendar around on my desk and I say, okay, pick when you want to die, and I'll back it up 5 years. Because that's really what happens, is that you end up slowing down so much that you have nothing to offer, and you start decaying. You start coming apart so much faster.
Yeah. It goes to, well, we talked about this on another podcast that I do, I Retire for Him, that most people are prepared financially and they know what they're retiring from. Very few people know what they're retiring to. And Russell, that's where you're at. You've got this amazing broad horizon in front of you, and you talk about North Dakota. Talk about a broad horizon. If you step foot in North Dakota from the western side of Minnesota, you can practically see the Rocky Mountains on the other side of Montana. It is that flat. I mean, there is nothing but wheat fields and one highway going across North Dakota. You can't get across it fast enough. And if you've never driven across North Dakota, don't bother. Look at it from Google Earth, because there's nothing to see.
Somebody told me one time that if you look in the horizon in North Dakota, you can see the back of your head.
Yeah, it is. You talk about flat. Oh my word! And when the wind starts blowing in Montana, coming out of the Rockies, it doesn't stop till it gets to Lake Superior. It's unbelievable. All right, but you've got this, what you're retiring to thing. You and your bride. What's your bride's first name?
Sandy.
Sandy, is that what you said? All right, so Sandy, you and Sandy are sitting there looking at, God, what did we retire to? What do you think that answer is? I mean, because he had you married. How many years you guys been married?
33.
So 33. You spent 33 years with your best friend. Now you both are. Your futures have been freed. You've got the whole horizon in front of you. What does God have for you?
You know what? I have to tell you, I'm still in the stable. Kind of waiting on that. There are some things that we're currently doing. But this is so new. I mean, I sold my business in September. She retired last May. We spent our summer in Minnesota. And this is right now like whatever day this is in the mid-October that we're recording this. This is the real time where we're going, okay, now what? What happens now? So we're kind of in that stage of, because we vacationed all summer, up at our place that we have in Minnesota, and now we're back here. And seriously, in the last several days, we're like, okay, now what? Now what happens next? So we're in that stage, and it's just such a wonderful stage to be in. But yeah, it's in my wife, wonderful follower of Jesus as well. We will continue to ask him, show us and guide us what you have in store for us next.
I got to tell you, this is actually really exciting for me because we're getting to talk to you after you've just completed this massive world-changing career experience. I mean, you were able to influence kids while you were teaching, and then you built out these leadership development tools, and who knows what has happened in the time that you've invested in these people and creating leaders out of janitors. I mean, it is just amazing to imagine what it is that you've done here. And so and this is something that I say often, and I believe in it so much, is that we've got this little, and Jim's heard me say this way too many times, but it's so important. I wish everybody in the world would think this way all the time. But we have this little tiny 90 years that we have here on this earth in preparation for our eternity. So if you imagine, you've got this teeny tiny little time of 90 years stretching out over eternity that goes on and on and on forever. We have this time to prepare for eternity. And what we do in this 90 years has a big effect on what our eternity means. When you go through the scriptures, there's over 700 references to, I will reward you for this. Meaning, when you're walking with him and you're doing things for him, he loves that, and he will reward you. I mean, he says, cast your treasures into heaven, not on earth. And so when we think about that, we've got this teeny tiny 90 years to build rewards in heaven. Now, I'll come back to the rewards portion, but we have this tiny little 90 years. Why wouldn't we maximize that opportunity? And so if we think about what is it that we would want rewards for? And I've had this conversation with a lot of people. Number one, when God tells you, cast your treasures into heaven, that means we should. It doesn't mean, oh, I'm going to be too humble, I'm not going to do that. But no, he says, cast your treasures into heaven because he wants to reward us. And if he wants to reward us, there's a reason that he wants to reward us. Now, I can only imagine why that is. I don't know. I've never been to heaven, so I don't know what that's going to be like. But I can also know that he provides us everything we could ever need in heaven. Everything. There's nothing that we're going to need in heaven. Yes. But if he's providing everything for us, what do we need these rewards for? He talks about the crowns that he will give us. What do we need all that for? But I can think of one thing, which means that there's a lot more. So if I can think of one thing, there's a lot more. But if there's one thing that he provides me with everything except the things that I send to heaven from the time that I'm here on this earth, it's probably the only thing I have to offer back to him in thankfulness and in love and appreciation of everything that he does. It's probably the only love offering that I have. And if I can store up as much as I possibly can here for my 90 years that I can spend giving back to him in heaven, if that's all I have, gosh, that's what I'm going to do. So how do I do that? Well, I'm going to look at the Bible and say, what do you want me to do, God? Because everything that I'm doing according to his will, he will reward me for. And that's what's so exciting to me is what you're doing is you're in this place where you've followed his will. I believe you followed his will all the way through. Now, you might have gotten off one way or another, but he didn't care. It's always now forward, right? And so you're following his will. Now you have this brand new opportunity. I would love it if we could bring you back a couple of times on this journey and experience, have us and the listeners be able to experience what it's like to walk from retirement into the next phase, where you can be looking at this saying, I just want to do what God tells me to do. That's all I want to do. And if you're willing to do that, that would be super exciting for us and the listeners to hear what Russell Jenson has been doing to bring glory to the Father in phase, 3 or 4 for your life. But anyway, just a thought.
Yeah. Hey, Jim, I had a question for you real quick, and I know I'm not the one that's supposed to be asking the
You
questions.
go right ahead.
But I know that I'm going to continue to do leadership training and development for a variety of different companies. They're already kind of ringing my phone, getting in there and just doing leadership stuff. What advice can you give me on how? Because I'm such a faith-based guy. I mean, it's like all I think about anymore. Is this the right thing to do? What does God have to say about this? Is this the right? Would Jesus do this? What advice can you give me, or tools, how I can continue to bring my faith into these conversations around big business? Because, we talk to these big time leaders and whatever, and there's that, I couldn't do it in school. I couldn't bring Jesus into my classroom because you'd find yourself unemployed. You just couldn't. How do I do that as somebody that speaks to leaders? How do I bring Jesus into this conversation so it won't offend people or whatever? I just don't have such passion about that.
Okay, first of all, you have to understand that Jesus said people are going to be offended. Period. End of story. He said, you know what? The world's going to hate you. If you love me, the world's going to hate you. So you need to understand what Jesus says is offensive, which is kind of weird because what he says is truth and it actually brings healing, but it's offensive to people because when you present truth to people, it somehow draws a highlight to the sin in their life, and they're used to ignoring God so they can ignore the fact that there's sin in their life. So when you bring truth that exposes the sin, it makes them vulnerable and feel a little icky, and so that's why they don't want to be exposed to the truth. So you just have to recognize why people are resistant to this. There are 2 amazing groups out there that have a plain glass and stained glass approach. Giant.tv is one of the websites, and transformlead.com. Both organizations have incredible leadership training. One of them, Giant, focuses on becoming 100% healthy yourself so you can then multiply, becoming a 100x leader. And they have all of their presentation under plain glass exposure. So it's all biblical stuff. They teach leaders how to be great leaders. Sherpas, in fact, is their analogy. And they'll tell people what the biblical stuff is behind them, but they don't cite chapter and verse. Transform Lead does the same thing. You know a couple of guys actually that are involved in transformational leadership. They do the same thing. They do a seminar where the whole day is all day plain glass, which means they're not using chapter and verse. But if you stick around at the end, they'll go, if people ask, hey, where does this stuff come from? They'll tell people. So both of them lay a phenomenally powerful leadership stuff that's all based on scripture, but they do it under plain glass. There's no chapter and verse. You could teach great truth that is solid truth, and then people say, well, where did this stuff come from? You say, here it is. Both those organizations, again, not paid advertisers on the show yet, but incredible organizations training up leaders across America. I would highly recommend you research both of them.
Gotcha. Yeah, thanks for that.
I want to go back to one other thing you said, Russell, because you talked about work. And the reason people want to check out at 65 is they think that work is a punishment, that they've slaved all their lives and they deserve a break. That's because we have the wrong perspective on work. Work was a gift from God before sin entered the world. That's why you're getting restless after 2.5 months, not even 2.5 months. You're restless because God gave work to bring flourishing to our souls, because we all know people who all of a sudden went on vacation, and like you said, Brad, 5 years or less, they're dead. Sometimes it's 6 months or less, they're dead, because when you lose your purpose, you lose your pulse. But when you have purpose, it drives you. I know people who are in their mid-80s going to work every day, loving their purpose. They don't have to make a paycheck. They don't care about the money anymore because they've all figured out money is just a mirage. We don't take it with us. There's no U-Haul behind the hearse. You don't get to take it with you. People dig up old dead bodies and the gold is still on them. They never get to take it with them. But obviously the Egyptian pharaohs proved all that because everybody raided their tombs. and they made movies about it. So that's why, Russell, that's why you want to work, because God gave it to you to bring flourishing to your soul. And everybody listening, just understand that. Shift your paradigm. You don't need, if you quit working, you will lose the purpose for life, and you'll be saying goodbye to all of the family that's so important to you. If you keep working in whatever fashion, it will bring that flourishing, and it also bring fulfillment, and it gives you the energy then to continue investing in your family to make sure they understand these things before you're gone.
Yeah. I never considered, with my Bust Out Colorado stuff, I never considered that work. The work part of it was just getting it set up. That's the part I didn't care for. But moving the needle with organizations and watching people develop and just surprise people that they were able to step out of their comfort zone and do something that they never thought they would do within an organization, that's not work. That is what my purpose was for doing that business, was just to watch people thrive in an environment they never thought they would.
Well, my father-in-law, right before he said this many years, Martha and I have been married almost 40 years, he would say, listen, if you love what you do, you never go to work a day in your life.
Yep. I agree with that. I have to think that the three of us on this podcast would say that's true.
Yeah, I'm almost 60, Russell, and I've got a 25-year plan. I figure I can run for the next 25 years because I saw my parents, they did really good to their mid-80s. Martha's parents did really good to their mid-80s. So I figure, okay, we got 25 years. Lord, what can we do in the next 25 years? That's what we're working on. What's the next phase look like where I can wear out the soles of my shoes?
Oh, yesterday you wore them out.
So Russell, tell me and you may or may not have an answer to this right now, but this is a place where I'd love to come back to if we get a chance to bring you on again. But the question that I want to ask is, what do you want your life's work to reflect as God? So if you're when people turn around and look past from the end of your life backwards, how do you want God to be reflected through this next phase of your life?
I would hope that through the gifts and things that he has given me and the way I represent myself as close as I can to Jesus on a daily basis, that people will trust and lean into me. It's interesting. I just did a 365 challenge yesterday for 365 Christian men. And there was a guy that I hadn't talked to in probably 8 months, and he had lost his wife, and we had conversations during that time. And he called me the other day to check in with me. And I'm like, I don't think he's calling in to check in with me. I should be checking in with him. But I know, and he is not a Christ follower. He's so far from God. But I know that he knows that I am a Christ follower, and that for whatever reason, my life seems to be in pretty good order, and I make good decisions, and I'm a pretty good guy, right? But I know he's checking on me because he's fishing for something. He wants to know what it is about me that he wants a piece of that. And I called him yesterday, and we had an interesting conversation. We're going to get together in early November. But in answer to your question, Brad, I hope that God will continue to, it's not a pedestal that I'm on, that is for sure. But I hope that people would trust in me and see something in me and my wife and the way I behave and the way I go about things, where they'll go, there's something about that guy. I don't know what it is, but maybe I want just a little bit more of that, to be able to spend some time to lean in. So my prayer is to continue to represent as best I can the footsteps of Jesus as I move through this later stage, where people will say, there's something about that guy. He's just a little bit different. I'm not sure what it is, but I want a little bit more of that.
That is fantastic. And I'd also like to point out that you again listen to the Holy Spirit, because when that guy called you, you made the comment saying, I think I better check in with him. And from the world that I live in, that's the Holy Spirit saying, he's not calling to check in with you, you're to check in with him. And that's what I love about our God, is that he's just out there using those that are willing to be used by him. And that's something that is throughout this entire story that you've told us and what you've done, that's what you've been. That's the reason why you're leading some church group on the side of the lake that you just created out of nothing, because God said, would you be willing to let me speak to the people that I love here on this lake? And you're like, sure, I'll be there. How do you want me to do it? Wherever you go, you're looking to see how you can reflect. That's why you love the 365, is that you want to be able to say, okay, I see God using 365 to influence people around the world. I mean, millions of people every single day around the world are being influenced by 365. You're looking at that saying, how can I help that grow? How do I do more? And that's the heart that is going to be an incredible phase. What is this, 3 or 4 of your life to continue the journey to reflect Christ through the things that you're doing?
Yep, I couldn't be more excited about it. Honestly, it's who knows what's next, and that's just the beauty of the Holy Spirit. But my eyes and ears are wide open for whatever God has for me next. And I think if I were to rewound the tape and retired 30 years ago, I may just be kicking my feet up and just doing what Jim was talking about, starting to die, because Christ wasn't first in my life at that point in time. So you now fast forward the tape to where I am now, where, gosh, so many decisions I just put before him to say, you know what, guide me through this one. Is this the right thing to do? Is this not the right thing to do? And so far, he has answered everything that I've asked him for. It's amazing, absolutely amazing.
Wow.
But it's safe to say you're at a power of or moment, because you've got, well, I could go do this, or God's got something better in front of me. I just don't know what it is. So that's what Brad, we were going to bring you back, Russell. You guys keep in touch. Let us know what's going on. But Russell Jenson, thank you so much for being on the Power of Or podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it. And thank you. I appreciate your friendship. As we continue to grow through the small groups that we're in, it's great to surround myself with godly men like you.
And thanks to all of you for listening to the Power of Or podcast with Brad Hawkins. Brad, did you have a final thing you wanted to say? I did not mean to interrupt you.
No, you go right ahead.
All right. Well, again, to everybody listening, thank you for listening to today's Power of Or podcast with Brad Hawkins and Jim Brangenberg. Please follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, and Truth Social. And if you want to join us on a future show, email me, jim@iwork4him.com. We hope our discussion today has inspired you to live with the power of or on your mind, and for you to submit your business issues to the one who has all the answers. This episode of the Power of Or podcast is brought to you by SaferNet. For a full VPN experience coupled with antivirus, web filters, internet controls, and an internet use tracking console, SaferNet provides complete protection for your organization. Check them out online at safernet.com.